Hey everyone, Tony Winston here for Jazz Piano College. Got a request to do a tutorial on green Dolphin Street, so let's take a look at it. I came up with a few ideas this morning, and this is going to be a video mostly for beginners, but I will cover a few advanced topics. And down in the description there's a few links. There's a link to my Patreon page if you would like to support the channel. There's also some timestamps, so if you want to skip over the beginner stuff and go to something like drop 2 voicing or altered scales or improv or something, it's all down there in the timestamp, so you just hit the time and it'll skip you ahead to where you want to be in the video. Okay, I will start with this little idea that I had for this song, and this is using fourths. This is like the way McCoy Tyner played. He played with a lot of fourths, chords built on fourths, like this. And that is a C major chord with a couple of extra notes in there. We call it a 6/9 chord. Another thing McCoy did a lot of was moving everything up a half step while keeping the top note the same. Gives you a cool sound. And so that's what I did. And here I used another voicing with fourths, but it also has this note. There's only a third right there. And this is called the so what chord. It's a minor 11th chord. It's a C minor with a 7th and a 4th or an 11th. And then I moved that up like that. And I thought that sounded good against that note. Kind of reminded me of Pretzel Logic from Steely Dan or something like that. So those were my ideas. And then I thought for the next 2 chords, which is a D over a C and D flat over a C. You could also think of that as D dominant 7th and D flat major 7th. But I thought I'd just play the chords here and mess around with the left hand. And then we get into the A section. No, that was the A section. Then we get into the B section of the song. And then we're back to the A section again. And here we have another B section, so we'll call this letter C. That's not right. Now, let's go over the song in a more basic way. We'll play the chords with our left hand, the melody with our right hand, and that's a good way to learn the chords. Once you know the chords pretty well, you want to try to open up your chords a little bit into what you call open voicings. Like, for instance, C major. If you took the E out, see, these are all thirds, they're all close together. If you took the E out and put it up here and played a C major that way, you could call that an open voicing. So the first one is C major. You know the difference between major and minor, right? And the melody hits this note. And you have to consider that as part of the chord as well, and you could add it to the chord down here. And what chord would that be? Okay, there are 3 chords I really want you to know, and I'm going to show them to you right now. C major 7th, that's a major triad, and the 7th, that's just down a half step. C dominant 7th, which is just written C7, like that, and you go down 2 steps like this to get to C7. It's a dominant chord, and it really wants to go around the cycle of fifths and lead to an F. C down to F. And then there's C minor 7th. So it also has this, but it has a minor triad and a minor 7th. Now, you can call this a minor 7th interval, but it's used in the dominant chord as well too. So let's just call it a flat 7. And there's your minor 7th chord. So once again, C major 7th, C dominant seventh, and C minor seventh. And let's do it in one other key too. Let's do it in a kind of a harder key. Let's do E flat. So we've got E flat, there's our major triad. We come down one from the root, and that's a major seventh. This one would be dominant seventh, and then we'll flat this one for minor seventh. And any of these chords, you can invert them. In other words, take a note from the bottom and move it to the top, right? So let's do C major seventh, move it to the top. That's still C major seventh. Move the bottom note to the top. That's C major seventh. And that's C major seventh. Okay, so here's our song. C minor seventh. And then this is a D major. The C is still on the bottom. So if we put the C up here, we can see it's a D dominant seventh chord. So you could play it that way if you like, or keep the C on the bottom. And then D flat, again with the C on the bottom, and that would be a major seventh chord, right? Because we only came down one from there. And like I say, you can keep the C on the bottom, and that's kind of the sound of this song, is to keep that C on the bottom. C major, C minor, D major, D flat major, and back to C. Some of these chords are kind of hard to get your fingers around. And really, if you're a beginner and you haven't done like some basic piano, like maybe, learn some classical like this. Then that really moves your fingers around a lot, and it also teaches you a lot of just kind of basic piano skills. So, if you haven't done that kind of thing, playing some of these chords is going to be pretty hard, because you got to have pretty flexible fingers to do this. So, study some basic piano. And also, when it comes to improvising, knowing all these scales and, runs and pentatonic things, knowing all that theory isn't going to help you improvise if you can't already improvise. And one way that you can learn to improvise is just by, like listening to simple songs and figuring out how to play them. Like pick out Happy Birthday or something by ear. I had a student the other day, only 8 years old, and we learned the song Baby Sharks. And, it's a simple song. It goes, baby sharks, do, 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 do. Baby shark, do, 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 do. And, he picked out the melody. And I helped him a little bit with the chords. Something like that. So let's go on. We've got the A section. Let's go to the B section. Starts with a D minor seventh, and the note I'm playing is 11 notes away from D here. So D minor 7, there's a 9, there's an 11. You could play all of that, and that's a closed voicing. Here it goes to G7. I think it goes sooner than that. All right, now my melody is the 7th, so I just play the G here. And I'm going to play that G again with the 7th while I play these kind of dissonant melody notes. And that is a flat 9 and a sharp 9. The regular 9 is here. All right, and how do I find the regular 9? You have to know the scale. All right, if you don't know all 12 major scales, you should learn them, at least with the right hand. G major scales like this. And there's the 9, the 9th note of the scale. And you can call it's also the 2nd. So a 9th and the 2nd are the same thing. And, a dominant chord doesn't use the note from the scale. It uses a flat 7. This is the regular 7 from the scale, and this is the flat 7. Even though it's not a black key, you call it a flat 7 because you took the 7 and flatted it. And then here's our 9, there's our flat 9, and there's our sharp 9. Okay, and these are pretty cool sounding notes here, and they lead you right back to C. Then we do the exact same thing in the key of E flat. Here's E flat, and the 2 chord is the F minor. Sorry. B flat 7th, and here's my flat 9. Now notice it's not a black key. There's my regular 9. I just flatted it, and a sharp 9. And then back to G7 and back to C. Here I'm improvising a little bit. It sounds like the melody, but I'm kind of dancing around it. Instead of going, I went, and I wasn't thinking about a scale or anything like that. I was just kind of hearing those notes in my head, and I could find them. And that takes years of practice. I could sing ba 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 ba. Close. I can hear the notes and then I can play the notes. And first you have to hear the notes and, just listen to a lot of music and sing along with it. And that gives you that talent. And then you hunt around to find those notes on the piano. You do it a lot. And then pretty soon you're able to play. All right. Now we go back through the A section again. And then we get to the last section. We'll call it the C section. And starts the same way. And goes to B minor 7 flat 5, okay? That sounds like a tough chord to get. You have a B, you have to make a perfect 5th like this. Right, most of them are like this, but B and B flat are like opposites there. So there's B, then you put the right 3rd in. The happy one is B major, the sad and depressing one is B minor. And then you add the 7th, B minor 7th, or it has to be down 2, just like the dominant chord. And then you flat the 5, and you end up with that, and it's very easy to remember, obviously. Just play it like that. So here we go. All right, and I got the F both places, so I don't really need it. And then here's E dominant 7th, and A minor 7th. And here I'm going to take the melody up an octave so I can play my chord here rather than down there. And B 7th. That was F sharp minor 7 flat 5. B 7. E minor. A 7. D minor. And G 7th. And back to C. And you see when I'm doing this kind of thing. This is why we have chord inversions, because this is jumpy sounding. It doesn't sound smooth. If I took this note and put these 2 on the bottom, you see that's the chord I was on, E minor 7th, right? And then when I went to A 7th, I could just keep those there because they're the same notes. And that is a lot smoother. That's the first little part of the B section. So it's like... So if we're going to improvise, we play around with those notes, dance around the melody. Right? And this, where does that note come from? It's not in the G scale or anything, but it's part of the melody. It's got to sound good. Right? Then you do the same thing up here. Now, if you're doing a 2-5-1 here in E flat. Here's the 2 chord, the B flat 7th, I'll invert it. And I also might flat the 9 there, and then E flat. And just do E flat major scale all the way through. And from the melody, I have these 2 notes, so I put those in my improv. back to G. All right, G7. All right, you can always use the white keys because it's the 5 chord in the key of C. Those notes will work on every single, what you call scale tone 7th chord. And, we could talk about what scales will work. Diminished scale, altered scale, the art-tatum approach of a minor 6 chord. All those kind of things. But they're of absolutely no use to beginners whatsoever. You have to do it by ear. So, pick out the notes that sound the best on those 2-5-1s. The last section of this song, it goes through a lot of changes. Let's see if we can find a simple way to get through it. All right, now we're going to do a 2-5-1 going to A minor. So let me play an A harmonic minor scale. All right, A harmonic minor scales like this. All right, not talked about very much these days in jazz, but back in the day it was used quite a lot, and it'll still give you some really great results. So, I'm going to jump away from this for just a second. I talked about this in my last video. The jazz chord of all time. You take a dominant 7th chord and you flat the 5. Now they call that a sharp 11 these days, but you flat the 5. And I just talked about a tritone substitution. Look at that note. It is the tritone, all right, the flat 5. And if you invert this chord, put the D flats down here like this, you get the exact same chord in D flat. G7 flat 5, D flat 7 flat 5. Same chord. All right, so when you flat the 5, it's kind of like a built-in tritone substitution in there. So you could go 3, 6, 2, 5, but you could also go like 3, 6. This is an A7 with a flat 5, and I just put it down there so it's going chromatically like this. Or, you could keep them all in root position and you'll have exactly the same notes. But like I say, it jumps around too much. All right. And that's a 3-6-2-5-1. There's lots of great ways to get around it, This comes from years of practice here. Don't try this at home. All this stuff is that. You can spend a lifetime working on changes like this and still not exhaust all the possibilities. So it's a lot of fun to discover this kind of stuff on your own. 3-6-2-5-1, or just keep it simple. 3, 6, make the 6 a minor if you like. 2, 5, 1. See? Right. Move the top 2 down. You can do it like that. Then this, and then move the top 2 down again. And I used all white keys because I'm in the key of C. Using some flat 5s in there. Right. And the other note too, besides the flat 5, is the flat 9. All right. So this is very common too. If you do improvising here, see there's the flat 9 and another flat 9. Right? And I put the flat 5 in the chord at the same time. Check it out. All right. And I do want to encourage you to just explore, the harmony of the piano. was going to cover another advanced topic here. I was going to do a little bit on rootless voicings, and I'll also do a little bit on drop 2. So rootless voicing first, C major 7th. Let's just take the root out and put a 9 in instead. And we could maybe change the 7th to a 6th. That gives us a very hip sounding chord. And here we'll go, let's get rid of that root, just go 3rd, 5th, 7th. All right, looks like an E flat major chord actually. And then, see, it's like a D. There's the 3rd, the 7th, the 9th. I could go down like this for D flat major, but you know, I could reharmonize that to a D flat dominant. This could be a G dominant also. And then right back to our chord again there. I left that note out because I'm on it up here. All right, so let's see how that sounds. All right, now 2-5-1 rootless could be this, that, like it. And then in F, I come up to the 3rd. Well, it's E flat is the key, but that's the 2 chord, F minor. All right, that's like a B. There's B7, B flat 7. There's the flat 13. I can put a sharp 9 in like that. All right, and these are called box voicings. Very few people call them that. There's rootless voicings is a better title. The reason I call them box voicings is because my teacher taught him to me that way, and you can make a box and analyze all the different ways that these chords are used. And, you know, look down in my description too. I have a link to playlists that I've created, mostly my own videos. And, you know, look for a playlist called Rootless Voicings, and you'll find a bunch of videos about box voicings and other ways of approaching the rootless voicing idea. So where were we? Let's see. Now we want to go to the last part. A little bit of closed voicing. All right, this is where you play the melody in octaves and you try to fill in as much of the chord as you possibly can. D. And then usually when you're going up a scale, you put diminished chords in every other note, like D minor, a diminished chord. I mean, it could be E, G, B flat, or C diminished. You can call it whatever you want. And then D minor again, another diminished chord. And then here's G7, so, and the melody note is that, so. All right, I'll do the same thing here. And there's also another technique called drop 2, where you do the same kind of thing, but imagine this is 5 saxophones, okay? And the second saxophone would be here. That's the first saxophone, that's the second saxophone. Take the second one and drop it down an octave and get rid of the doubled note there. So you move the C down to there, get rid of the doubled note, and you have this, and then you do the same thing. You go up in a diminished chord, back to the D minor, another diminished, like this. And that gives you a real open kind of Bill Evans kind of sound, so. There's some real cool ways of doing that, but this is not the time or the place to get into all that. Well, thanks for joining me again on Jazz Piano College. Give me a thumbs up If you'd like to support the channel, of course, I got the Patreon page. Look down in the description for that, and or other ways you could make a donation to support the channel. I do appreciate it greatly, and I always like hearing from you, so please leave me some comments. And that's where this video came from. Somebody wanted Green Dolphin Street just a few days ago, so haven't done it for a while, so I thought I'd do it today. All right, that's it. Thanks, folks. Take care. Be well. See you soon.